stretching across the continents to provide you positive, relevant, and balanced information with fresh insight from those in the know, right in the land, focusing a biblical lens on Israel and the Middle East. You're watching Focal Point.
Welcome to this special edition of Focal Point. Today, we'll be taking a look back at some of the many issues we've brought you concerning Israel and the Middle East.
That's right. Over the last year and a half, we presented you, our viewers, with more than 65 focused interviews from numerous locations around the world.
Those discussions have included not only the ancient biblical history of Israel, but its modern history, as well as current issues that the country and its people are facing even today.
In this show, we'll be highlighting some of those past interviews so you can see again for yourself why those continuing to work hard to make a difference in the land today still need your continued prayers and support.
We'd like to begin by taking a look at some previous highlights regarding the history of the Holocaust, the viewpoints of Israel's neighbors, attempts at land for peace, and some of the issues that Islam struggles with regarding democracy.
See, this is where it all began. The whole idea of concentration camp began here in Dachau. That's how it looked like in 1933, when mainly political prisoners were kept here, and starting in 1938, mostly Jewish people came in here. Most of the personnel for concentration camps, they were trained here. They developed the prototype here, and then they multiplied it throughout all of Europe until 1945, killing 6 million Jews altogether. And this, of course, is a big challenge, a big burden for me. As a citizen of Munich, as a Christian, big challenge to do whatever it needs now, today, to make sure that it never happens again, neither here nor anywhere else in the world.
Since 1945, when the Arab League realized that there might be an Israel, there might be a Zionist entity in the Middle East, they have objected to the sovereignty of anyone but Muslims in the Middle East. So a decision was made by the Arab League in 1945 when Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Mufti of Jerusalem, came back from Hitler's bunker and came to Cairo, that they were going to organize the Arabs in Palestine and around the Middle East to try to wipe out the Jews, to make the area Judenrein.
What happened with the Gaza Strip, of course, was for the first time, close to 10,000 people were forcibly removed from their homes. It was a terrible, terrible thing, and those people suffered terribly. And to this very day, there are still hundreds of families who are not yet in permanent homes. And it's something to keep in mind when you hear people all over the world, still political leaders in the United States and in Europe, will talk about dismantling the settlements. Well, what does that mean? These are cities and towns and villages where people live. And you're talking about throwing them out of their homes, which is a totally inhumane thing to do. And yet this is something that people are willing to consider. So I would say one thing that this Gaza thing created was a precedent. You could say a dangerous precedent. But on the other hand, I like to look at it as something that, at least here in Israel, people are saying, we're not going to do that again. Because where we moved out, supposedly in order to make a concession for peace, what we got in return was more terrorism than ever before.
Democracy is like a cake, which is baked from many ingredients: human rights, political freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of women, minority rights, freedom of religion, freedom from religion, and so forth, freedoms. All these freedoms, or most of them, either contradict the Quran, especially freedom of women, since when a woman has the right in Islam to choose her spouse, a father is marrying his daughter off. In Islam, virginity is more important than the woman's life.
I think people have a misperception of what democracy is here in the Middle East. When a Western government comes in or tries to influence another government to have a democratic reforms, whether it's in Iraq or whether it's in Egypt, I think they think that a free election is democracy, but it's not always. It doesn't always happen that way. In the West, in America, for example, we've had centuries of a democratic institutions and tradition, and they're based on Judeo-Christian values. A free election is not necessarily just democracy.
After a short break, we look at continuing immigration to the land of Israel, the land's significance in Scripture, and how relationships between Jews and Christians are improving all over the world.
But right now, we would like you to take a look at an amazing hands-on ministry located right in the heart of Jerusalem. For over 25 years, Christian Friends of Israel has been ministering to the people of the biblical heartland, one life at a time.
Shalom, my name is Ray Sanders. I'm the Executive Director and Co-Founder of Christian Friends of Israel in Jerusalem. If you've never considered a visit to the land of Israel, we as Christian Friends encourage you to do so. This is an amazing country of many opportunities that God is doing in these last days. Come and see what Jewish people have done over the last 65 years, developing this beautiful nation.
And I'm Sharon Sanders, co-founder of Christian Friends of Israel Jerusalem, and I invite you also to be a part of this ministry that God has raised up in Jerusalem for Christians to be able to partnership and to be a blessing to Israel. Christians from all over the world have come to make this ministry alive. We're living stones and living witnesses to the Jewish people of how much we love them and appreciate them for all they have given to the world, and especially to the church. We have decided to obey the command in Genesis 12:3, which says, I will bless those who bless my people. And we have developed projects that touch the lives of many Jewish people, and you are able to be a part. You are able to partnership with us in this work. We have an outreach to immigrants who are coming from around the world. Over 250,000 have come to our doors to receive help and assistance while they're settling back in their land. I think CFI, Christian Friends of Israel, has probably one of the most beautiful bridal salons in the country, as Christians from all over the world have stocked and supplied this beautiful salon. And then we have an outreach to survivors of the Holocaust who are getting older and obviously have only a certain amount of time to tell of what they saw and what they witnessed during the Nazi Holocaust. We also have an outreach to the church in Israel and to believers throughout the land. And in addition to that, we have an outreach to Ethiopian Jewry who have come from Addis Ababa in miraculous airlifts, and they need a lot of help in settling back into the land. We have various projects that touch the lives in a special way, undoing damage that the historical church did against the Jewish people for centuries. Will you help us? Will you be there with us, be connected with our hands and our feet as we're on the ground here for you to be able to say, we're Christians and we're friends of the Jewish people. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you and shalom.
To partner with the Ministry of Christian Friends of Israel through prayer, volunteering, or financial gifts, please visit cfijerusalem.org.
Welcome back. Over the past decades, as Jews from around the world continue to return to their ancestral homeland, CFI, along with others in the land, have been an integral part in assisting those finding their way home.
I think I read this week in the newspaper that there are now more French Jews immigrating to Israel than from any country in the world, including the United States of America, which has typically been the greatest number of Jewish people coming to Israel because of anti-Semitism in France.
Being an immigrant is an extremely difficult experience, and it doesn't matter where you come from. As an American Jew, I grew up in the United States. Culturally, I'm still very American. English is my native tongue. There are those kinds of cultural gaps that often challenge a person. In a sense, the comparison I make in many cases is that the people who make Aliyah, the people who come here, are like the generation of the desert. They're the ones who travel and reach the promised land, but it's really their children who inherit the land.
What makes a Safar Rofeh very special is that it's a community-oriented hospital. We serve about 600,000 people. Many of them make part of the weakest strata, economic and social strata of the Israeli population. These are immigrants that came not long ago from Ethiopia, the ex-Soviet Union. Many of them are still suffering their integration process. They're not very prosperous. They're dealing with many difficulties. And a Safar Rofeh is dealing not only with medicine, but providing them with a lot of community services, including a soup kitchen where they come to eat for 2 shekels a day, which is really just a symbolic payment.
I remember that recently I spoke to some new immigrants here, and I just looked in their eyes, I looked at their faces, and I could see by their clothing, by their expressions, I could see the trauma, I could see the enormity of the process and the steps that they would have to take to come from an absorption centre into a fully integrated Israeli, and that's our aim. And my heart went out to them, and I just looked at them and I said, God has brought you here. I said, you are a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. I said, when the times get hard, when the times get difficult, I want you to always remember that God is with you, that God has not forgotten you, and that God will help you. And I think anything that we can do to help in this process is something that we need to roll up our sleeves and we need to be involved with, because this is not just our work, this is God's work.
One of our points of focus has been to highlight the significance of Israel as it relates biblically to the origin of the church, the prophetic future, and God's ultimate plan of redemption for the world.
The most remarkable thing about the Jewish people is that God gave to them divine light in His Word, and that was to be transmitted to the world. Because God not only said, out of these shall come forth a great nation, well, I would say any nation is unique to whom was given God's own word. No other comes near it. And secondly, through them came the Messiah. And he quite rightly said, this is Jesus, the Lord Jesus. He said, salvation is of the Jews. That is, the salvation of God came through the Jews.
I believe it's very clear in Isaiah 60, for example, that he said there would come a time for Israel when he would bring them back, the Jewish people back, and he said, my light will shine upon you, my glory will rise upon you. And yet just a few verses later, he's saying Gentiles will help build up your walls and will be part of this whole process of the rebuilding and the restoration of Jerusalem and of Israel. It's a moment in time that was prophesied, and everyone who participates in strengthening Jerusalem and strengthening Israel and in encouraging and helping the Jewish people to return as was prophesied in the Scripture is actually an integral part of God's end-time plans for this land and for the nations.
Israel is an amazing country. The people are amazing people. There is a spirituality here that you don't find anywhere else. It just permeates the land. God's presence is everywhere. And it's different depending where you go. If you're in Jerusalem, there is a spirituality that has an energy that just excites you. And when you go to the Galilee, there is a spirituality that is peaceful. And so, for example, many of my Christian friends who are living and working here will go to the Galilee for their vacation because it is so restful. It rejuvenates you.
When you have, as they say in the military terminology, when you have boots on the ground and you are there in the land and you open up the Bible and you know that this happened right here and that happened right there. And all these things are proving the veracity of the Bible. It's not like if you come out of seminary and you go to you become a pastor in a church or a rabbi in a synagogue, and you talk about theoretical things, but you weren't there. So Israel is extremely critical for any kind of pastor or rabbi or religious leader to really know what he's talking about.
When we come back from a short break, we'll bring you some highlights of the growing relationship between Jews and Christians, as well as a look at the many targeted campaigns against Israel over the years.
But before that, we would like you to take one more look into the ministry efforts of Christian Friends of Israel in Jerusalem. CFI has 9 distinct outreach projects which are designed to help the real-life needs of people right in the land.
Shalom, I'm Sharon Sanders and co-founder of an organization, a Christian ministry called Christian Friends of Israel, Jerusalem. I'm standing beside a small olive tree here in the land. Olive trees are proficient all over the land, and it's a symbol of peace. It's been a symbol of peace ever since the days of Noah, when the dove brought the olive branch back to Noah to let him know that the land was at peace and that all things were well. Well, we think of peace today, and it's a conversation of most media around the world and in the newspapers, the radio, television. And we bring you a way that you can be totally at peace in your relationship with the Jewish people, because God has commanded us in the Bible in Genesis 12, verse 3, I will bless those who bless my people. And we want to bring a blessing to the Jewish people and let Israel know that her Christian brothers and sisters all over the world are standing strong with them in these days. Will you help us to bring the peace symbol, to show how much our love is for them? You can come alongside of this ministry of Christian Friends of Israel and become a partner with us. You can partner in all the projects, whether it's to Holocaust survivors, victims of terror, Ethiopian Jewry, Russian Jewry, believers in the land, the poorest of the poor and the needy. Many opportunities and choices to choose from to partner with Christian Friends of Israel. And so in this troubled world, in the days in which we live, you can be a symbol of peace by joining alongside of Christian Friends of Israel and becoming this symbol to the Jewish nation. May God bless you as you prayerfully consider to come alongside.
Hi, I'm Ray Sanders. We encourage you to come alongside of our ministry and support the nation, the people of Israel in these last days. God is doing miraculous things among His chosen people, and we want you to be a part of that. So partnership with us and be a blessing to the people of Israel.
You've just seen some stories of real, live people and ministries and organizations within the land of Israel. Come with us again the next time that we come into your home on this program called FocalPoint, and come alongside of the ministry of Christian Friends of Israel, and we'll partner together for the glory of God in this hour. Shalom, and God bless you from Jerusalem.
To partner with the Ministry of Christian Friends of Israel through prayer, volunteering, or financial gifts, please visit cfijerusalem.org.
Welcome back. As you'll see next, the relational dialogue between Jews and Christians continues to improve as both sides discuss topics of common ground with true understanding.
I was in one small place in Norway. His name is Trondheim. And one lady, very old lady, she came to me and asked me, are you a rabbi? I can get from you a blessing? So I asked her, which kind of blessing you want? You want a blessing for long life? Yes. She said, no, I'm 95, I don't need. So I asked her, you want a blessing for health, good health? She said, no, I don't care about my health. So what blessing you want? You lost your job? You want God find for you good job? 95 years old? She said, no. So what you want? She said to me, I never was in Israel. Yes, I want God give me the opportunity only to come to Israel and to see the Jewish people live in His land. So when you see kind of people like that, you know that this is a truth love, this is not a game, this is not for another reason. This is only love for the Jewish people.
For us, relating to Christianity, based upon what was at Maimonides' time, is quite different than what it is today. In Maimonides' time, there was something called replacement theology, that the church actually replaced Israel. That Jerusalem, even though it's a physical place, was spiritualized over the last 2,000 years. So what you're facing right now is a new type of Christian, and that Christian is affirming the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with the Jewish people. That covenant wasn't never severed. That you feel that you're part and parcel of that covenantal experience and atoning for past misdeeds and actually taking proactive steps to support Israel and the Jewish people. That's unprecedented. That sort of forms a new, what we call halachic reality, a new Jewish law reality, which we never faced in Maimonides' time or anyone before or after him.
And the focus of dialogue has to be language. We don't speak the same language. We use the same words, don't mean the same things, and when we talk to each other, we're so quick to say what we want to say, we're not really listening to the nuances we missed in the other. And in general, that really is what has gotten us as far away as possible. In addition to the theological differences or social differences, that's really the focus. And the same thing happens between husband and wife and in families, children and parents. We use the same words but don't mean the same things, and we don't take the time to find out, well, what does the other person mean?
I want to give you a tip. The Jewish people believe, and the Christian people believe, that the Messiah that will come to Jerusalem will come from the east gate of Jerusalem. It means that he will pass here. So you see how much we feel important. The people in Ma'ale Adumim, we feel important to both religions. We're taking care, we are the guards of the walls of Jerusalem, and we are guarding the road to Jerusalem to make it safe and open to everyone. And God willing, the Messiah for both of us will come very soon.
In this final segment, we'd like you to hear how Israel continues to deal with the ever-changing tactics of its enemies, as well as the often misleading information released by many media outlets today.
Israel was established 4,000 years ago when Abraham came here and made his covenant with God. And Jerusalem was established over 3,000 years ago by King David. And in 1948, we were re-established in the modern time, based on our history and on our traditions and all the great civilization and culture and history that we built here. Our enemies tried to destroy us through the might of arms and wars, and they couldn't. Now, since the enemies of Israel could not destroy it by physical means, they turned into economic with boycotts, and even that didn't help. Again, with the help of God, Israel's economy now is one of the strongest in the world. They tried terrorism, and they didn't succeed with terrorism either, because Israel's resolve was also shown. They move now to yet another tactic, which is a political and legal warfare, and this is the delegitimization campaign, which we see it in the papers, in the media, which we see it through civil organizations, how they spew anti-Israel lies to create a situation where Israel is isolated and Israel is delegitimized.
I think we also need to root out any kind of anti-Semitism, because I think there is a lot of anti-Semitism that's masquerading behind anti-Jewish feelings at present. A lot of it is very irrational, and when you actually go to Israel, and indeed when you go into the occupied territories as well, you find that the situation is very different from what is being portrayed in the media. But I think it is incumbent upon all Christians who love truth that we have to expose what are fallacies and inaccuracies, and the untruths that are peddled, not least by the media.
You know, again, that's one of the riddles. Why do media portray Israel as an apartheid state, as a racist state? First of all, they have no idea what is an apartheid. If Israel, you know, if you go to the definition of an apartheid, that's a discrimination based on color, religion, you know, ethnicity. You are discriminated against only because you are black, only because you are Christian or Muslim, or only. But this is not happening, you know, in Israel at all. And Israel, I'm saying again, having its own issues. There are differences between, you know, Arabs and Jews, Jewish different communities. But to say that Israel is an apartheid, that someone like myself couldn't be an Israeli diplomat, that someone who is not Jewish can't be a Supreme Court judge, or can't, you know, serve, be elected as a parliament member, those things doesn't exist.
We hope you've enjoyed today's look back at the many issues that have been covered here on Focal Point.
Our goal at Focal Point is to bring you positive, relevant, and biblically balanced information from those who study about or live right in the land of Israel. We encourage you to stay connected with CFI by visiting cfijerusalem.org. While you're there, make sure to sign up to receive the many online publications highlighting current events in Israel.
We also invite you to join us in Jerusalem in the spring of 2015 as Christian Friends of Israel Jerusalem celebrates its 30th anniversary. Not only will there be a great conference with rock-solid teaching and a tremendous tour of the land of Israel, but this could be your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to visit Israel like you've always dreamed. We encourage you to stay connected at cfijerusalem.org for the most current information on dates and times of this very special event.
As we take some time away from production in the months ahead, please continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and the nation of Israel.
So until we meet again next time, remember to always turn your point of focus to Israel and the Middle East.
We hope to see you next year in Jerusalem. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
Focal Point is brought to you by Christian Friends of Israel Jerusalem. For more information about any of today's guests, email us at info@focalpointtv.com. To partner with the Ministry of Christian Friends of Israel through prayer, volunteering, or financial gifts, please visit cfijerusalem.org. Focal Point is a production of Level E Media Incorporated.